So I just recently finished playing Silent Hill 2, the remake, and it was amazing. In my opinion, I think it was a masterpiece. I really do regret not playing the original. Well, actually I did play the original, but I never finished it because I was so scared. I do want to talk about what made this game special, and that is the characters and the storyline. What I want to talk about is a character that really stood out to me, a character who in my opinion is one of the best characters in gaming history, and honestly, a character who outshined our main protagonist, James. So let's get started, because who we're going to be talking about is Angela. Silent Hill is not just a location. It's not simply a fog-covered town on a map. In the world of horror games, it has become something greater, an entity, a presence, a mirror. Every person who steps into Silent Hill experiences it differently. For some, it's purgatory. For others, it's a form of hell. And for a few, like James Sunderland, it's both. Silent Hill 2 begins with James arriving in town after receiving a letter from his wife, Mary. The problem is, Mary is dead. She died 3 years earlier from a terminal illness, so immediately we are confronted with the impossibility of the situation. Why would James believe this letter? Why would he come here? And why does Silent Hill, this town of perpetual fog, feel like the only place he can search for her? The answer lies in the central theme of the series. Silent Hill manifests what people bring into it. It's not just a haunted town, it's a psychic landscape. It lures people in when they're at their breaking point, when guilt, grief, or trauma overwhelms them, and then reshapes itself to reflect their subconscious mind. The monsters you encounter, the distortions of the environment, even the other people you meet, they're all echoes of the visitor's own sins and suffering. For James, the city is a reflection of denial. His guilt over Mary's death is so profound that he represses the truth of what really happened. He convinces himself he's searching for her. Silent Hill twists this lie into a nightmare filled with grotesque representation of his suppressed emotions. Every street, every corridor, every figure lurking in the fog becomes a piece of James's psyche made tangible. But in this video, it's not about James. We're here to talk about Angela and why her story is so devastating. Silent Hill didn't just respond to James, it also responded to her. She too was drawn into the town. But unlike James, she wasn't seeking closure. She was seeking escape from trauma, from guilt, from the memories of abuse. And because of that, the Silent Hill she experiences is even darker, even crueler than James's. This duality of the two characters experiencing the same place through different psychological filters is what makes Silent Hill 2 more than just a horror game. It's a meditation of guilt, repression, and the human need of absolution. Silent Hill 2 opens with James standing in a dingy bathroom, staring into a cracked mirror, muttering to himself. Already, the game tells us this is not just a physical journey, but a psychological one. After this quiet, unsettling prologue, James makes his way through a misty forest and into a cemetery, and it's here, among the gravestones, that we meet Angela for the first time. Angela's introduction is subtle, but profoundly important. She sits hunched over, her body language closed off, her voice quiet and evasive. She tells James she's looking for her mother. Her words are polite, even hesitant, but something is immediately off. She's anxious, paranoid, and strangely defeated, even though at this point in the game, Silent Hill hasn't shown us its full horrors yet. This scene is critical for a few reasons. James hasn't yet descended into the core of the city. He's still in the outskirts. Technically, he hasn't crossed into the Silent Hill proper, yet Angela is already fully under the town's influence. She's disoriented, she doesn't trust James, and she speaks like someone who's been in Silent Hill's nightmare for a long time. This suggests something's unique about Angela. Her trauma is so consuming, so deeply rooted, that she doesn't need to step into Silent Hill for it to manifest. The fog, the atmosphere, and the distortion of reality is already inside her. Silent Hill doesn't simply warp the world around Angela. Angela herself is the Silent Hill she carries. Angela's instantly wary of James. She warns him that it's dangerous in the town and he should leave. But her tone isn't just concern, it's also conspiratorial. She behaves like someone who has been burned before, someone conditioned to see men as threats. This detail becomes more tragic in hindsight. We later learn Angela was sexually abused by her father and mistreated by her mother, who blamed her for the abuse. So from the very beginning, her guarded behavior towards James isn't just fear of the town. It's fear of men, fear of betrayal, fear of being hurt again. Angela's first appearance in a cemetery, a place of death, mourning, and unresolved grief, is no accident. For James, the cemetery foreshadows Mary's death and his inability to let her go. But for Angela, the cemetery reflects the death of her innocence, her family, and her hope. Both characters are spiritually buried long before their physical deaths. And yet, notice how differently they react to this setting. James pushes through the cemetery, determined to continue his search. Angela, well, she lingers among the graves, trapped, reluctant to leave. This tells us something profound about their arcs. James is running towards his guilt, even if he doesn't know it yet. Angela is stuck in hers. She can't move forward because she doesn't believe there is a way forward. Unlike James, Angela doesn't seem confused about what's happening, while James repeatedly asks the question like, what's going on in this town? Angela doesn't. She already accepts the strangeness as her reality. She doesn't question why Silent Hill is foggy, why it feels unnatural, or why she seems disoriented. This tells us Silent Hill is not an external shock to her. It's familiar. The nightmares James has to uncover piece by piece, Angela has been living her whole life. In that sense, the cemetery scene frames Angela not as a newcomer to Silent Hill's horrors, but as someone who has been dwelling in her own private version of it long before James ever arrived. The cemetery encounter is deceptively quiet, but it lays the groundwork for everything to come. James and Angela cross paths in the place of death, each bound by their own sins and traumas. But while James is still clinging to denial, Angela is drowning in her despair. She warns James to stay away, but in reality, it's a warning to herself. She knows where this road leads to. Silent Hill doesn't bring comfort or closure, it brings reflection. Harsh, merciless reflection. And Angela, already fractured, is the first casualty we see of what happens when Silent Hill holds up its mirrors too long. One of the defining features of Silent Hill 2 is that the monsters aren't just random grotesque designs to scare the player. They are deliberate. They are personal. Each monster is a reflection of James's psyche, his repressed desires, his guilt, his frustrations, and each encounter is less about defeating an enemy and more about staring into a mirror he desperately doesn't want to look at. Now I understand these are James's monsters and this is all based on his psyche, but I do want to talk about how these monsters in fact relate to Angela as well. The lion figure is the first creature James encounters, a humanoid body wrapped tightly in the straitjacket of its own flesh, stumbling and jerking awkwardly, unable to move freely. At face value, this represents confinement. James felt trapped during Mary's illness, unable to live freely, suffocated by his responsibilities as a caretaker. The suffocating suit of flesh mirrors both Mary's condition and James's sense of being imprisoned in that role. But look deeper and the symbolism becomes more visceral. The lion figure's posture is both vulnerable and aggression. It spews acidic bile from its chest, suggesting anger and resentment that burst forth uncontrollably. This can be seen as James's repressed anger towards Mary for being sick, for keeping him locked in the cycle of grief and frustration. And here's the tragic overlap with Angela. For her, the lion figure might just as easily represent her own sense of entrapment. She too was bound, trapped in an abusive household, restrained by fear and shame. This is why Silent Hill is so fascinating. The same monster can reflect two different traumas, depending on who is looking at it. The mannequins are among the most disturbing monsters in the game. Torsos without heads or arms, supported by a pair of two feminine legs. Their exaggerated sexual features are grotesque parodies of femininity. For James, the symbolism is clear. The mannequins represent his sexual frustration and objectification of women. While Mary was sick, James longed for intimacy, but also resented her inability to provide it. His repression twisted into something darker, reducing women in his subconscious as faceless, voiceless objects of desire. The mannequins are not just frightening, they're sad. They show us how James dehumanized women in his mind, and the fact that they have no heads, no individuality, underlines this point. They are bodies without people, objects without souls. This connects to Angela as well. To someone who has endured sexual abuse, the mannequins are horrifyingly familiar. They embody the way her abuser saw her, not as a person, but as an object to exploit. Silent Hill doesn't allow her to escape that reality. Instead, it forces her to relive it through every distorted creature lurking in the fog. Perhaps the most iconic enemy in the game, the Bubblehead Nurse, is a sexualized monster in a blood-stained nurse's outfit. Their faces are obscured by grotesque, withering bubbles of flesh, and their movements are jerky and unsettling, like a broken marionette. On the surface, they represent James's sexual repression and objectification of women during Mary's illness. Mary spent the final years of her life in the hospital, and James's visits became tinged with frustration. He was torn between love, resentment, and unmet sexual desires. The nurse's revealing outfits are exaggerated fantasies twisted into nightmares, a grotesque parody of the female form. Their obscure faces are also telling James has erased their humanity. To him, they're faceless outlets for desire, stripped of individuality or dignity. But from Angela's perspective, the Bubblehead Nurse can represent something even darker, the normalization of abuse. Angela's mother looked the other way, while Angela suffered, turning a blind eye, much like the faceless nurses who drifted through the hospital corridors. They are caretakers who do not care, bodies present but compassion absent. Silent Hill bends James's lust and Angela's abandonment into the same horrifying symbol. The flesh lips appear hanging from the ceiling, suspended upside down in fleshy contraptions that look like bed frames. Their bodies thrash violently, restrained and suffocated. For James, the flesh lips represent his feelings towards Mary during her illness. The bed imagery is central. Mary spent much of her time bedridden, and James began to see her illness as both a physical and emotional prison. The monster's strangled cries echo Mary's pain, and James's resentment toward being forced into the role of caretaker. For Angela, however, the flesh lips carry an even more sinister meaning. They symbolize sexual violence in a domestic space. Beds are supposed to be the place of rest, comfort, intimacy. For Angela, they were places of fear and abuse. The flesh lips are grotesque inversions of that. Beds that restrain, smother, and torture. And Silent Hill forces James to fight them. Even though Angela is the one who should be facing them, this intertwining of their traumas reinforces the idea that Angela is living inside James's nightmare, even while carrying her own. The Mandarins are among the strangest and most unsettling monsters in Silent Hill 2. They only appear in the otherworld, an important detail because it means they exist solely in the deepest recesses of James's subconscious. You never encounter them in the foggy streets, only in the warped underbelly of the town, where denial can no longer hold. Visually, Mandarins are hanging from the mesh gates, suspended by the thick suction pad forearms. From their bodies extend grotesque tentacles that protrude from the orifices, resembling human mouths. This design is deliberate. The mouth is a recurring motif in Silent Hill 2. Early monsters like the lion figures, mannequins, even Pyramid Head, lack visible mouths. They are silent, suffocating, restrained. But once James confronts the flesh lips, a creature that represents Mary's time bedridden, moaning in pain, suddenly mouths begin to appear everywhere. From that moment on, the monster James encounters express anguish, resentment, and despair through their distorted, gaping orifices. So what does the Mandarins mean? For James, they are a manifestation of anguish and his desperate desire to escape. Their position under the floor is critical. James pushes his guilt down, suppressing the memory of smothering Mary, trying to keep it buried. The Mandarins live where those memories belong, in the underworld of his psyche, clawing upward but never allowed to surface. The fact that they hang suspended, never able to walk above ground, reflects James's repression. He doesn't want these emotions or memories to stand in the open. He wants them hidden, out of sight, contained beneath a mesh of denial. The mouths of the Mandarins also echo Mary's voice, her anger, her pain, her accusations. When James visited her in the hospital, Mary lashed out in frustration, furious about her condition and about James's distance. The Mandarins' withering, voiceless mouths are Silent Hill's grotesque interpretation of those moments. Mary's anger, her suffering, always under the surface in James's mind. And through Angela's lens, the Mandarins take on an equally horrifying dimension. Their position beneath the floor, reaching up with unnatural arms, recalls the constant, invasive reach of her father. Abuse, too, is something that often lives hidden, suppressed beneath the surface of a family home. The Mandarins invoke that predatory presence, always there, always reaching, but never acknowledged. In both interpretations, the Mandarins are monsters of what must not be seen, what cannot be brought into the open. They embody suffocated anguish, unspoken pain, and the violence of memories that can never walk freely in the light. And then there's Pyramid Head, the monster has become synonymous with Silent Hill itself. Towering, muscular, and grotesque, Pyramid Head wears a massive triangular helmet that obscures his face. He drags a colossal sword behind him, scraping against the ground with every step. His design is unforgettable, but his meaning is even more profound. Pyramid Head exists for one purpose: to punish James. James killed his wife, and in the depths of his subconscious, he knows he deserves to suffer. Pyramid Head is the executioner born from that guilt, a twisted judge, a punisher who stalks James throughout the game. But Pyramid Head is not just punishment. He is also a reflection of James's sexual violence and frustration. The infamous cutscene in the Woodside apartment shows Pyramid Head assaulting and killing 2 mannequins. The scene is deeply unsettling, not just because of the violence, but because it feels so disturbingly personal. This is James's psyche laid bare, his sexual frustration, his aggression, and his guilt from how he treated Mary. Pyramid Head is both a punisher and, well, I can't say this word on YouTube, but it rhymes with grape. Because James's sins were both murder and lust, twisted into resentment. He desires punishment, but he also fears the violence of his own desires. Silent Hill fuses those fears together and gives them form. And then this is where Angela's tragedy intersects with James's. For Angela, Pyramid Head is not a metaphor, it is a reality she lived. The figure of a male aggressor, dominating female bodies, is her entire backstory, her deepest trauma. Pyramid Head may have been born from James's mind, but Angela recognizes him instantly, not as a personal creation, but as a familiar nightmare. Together, these monsters form a tapestry of repression, guilt, and trauma. For James, they represent his denial about killing Mary, his sexual frustration, and his repressed rage. Each one is a punishment and a confession, dragging his sins into the open. And for Angela, they are not metaphors. They are reminders of abuse she lived. They reflect the violence, neglect, and suffocation that define her childhood. This overlap is critical. Silent Hill bends itself to each person, but here James's sins and Angela's traumas collide. They are trapped in each other's nightmares, unable to escape the echoes of shared suffering. This is why Angela often seems less shocked by the creatures than James is. She doesn't ask, "What is that thing?" She already knows. She has been fighting a monster long before she stepped into Silent Hill. The difference is, James can still lie to himself about what they mean. Angela cannot. At its core, the monsters of Silent Hill 2 remind us that the horror is not external, it's internal. The town doesn't create random nightmares. It drags the ones you've buried into the light. And while James's monsters dominate the narrative, Angela's story reminds us that Silent Hill doesn't belong to just one man. Every victim in the town sees their own demons. The tragedy is that Angela's demons are not metaphorical. They're lived experiences. Where James has to be confronted with his sins, Angela has to be confronted with her victimhood. Both are prisons, but one of them had a choice, and the other didn't. After James first meets Angela in the cemetery, their paths separate. James presses on into Silent Hill, descending deeper into the fog and into his subconscious horrors. By the time he reaches the Woodside apartments, the nightmare has already begun to take shape. Monsters haunt the corridors, Pyramid Head looms over his journey, and the oppressive atmosphere is unrelenting. It's here, within the claustrophobic walls of the apartments, that James and Angela cross paths again. And this scene is one of the most telling in understanding who Angela is, what she represents, and how her trauma intertwines with James's own guilt. James discovers Angela sitting on the floor in a decrepit apartment room, staring into a mirror with a kitchen knife, clutched tightly in her hands. Her voice is quieter, her tone flatter than before. She doesn't seem startled by James's presence, but she's not comforted by it either. This moment reveals Angela's inner world. She is deeply suicidal, consumed by despair, and the knife has become both a weapon and comfort. It represents her temptation to end her life, but also her desperate need for control in a world where control was taken away from her. Her paranoia towards James has become sharper here. In the cemetery, she was guarded. At first, Angela seems almost willing to let go. She tells James to hold on to the knife for her, as if surrendering the burden she carries. But when James reaches for it, she suddenly recoils. Her paranoia spikes, and she lashes out, snapping at him, her voice sharp and panicked. Then just as quickly she crumbles. She apologizes, whispering, "I've been bad," before gently placing the knife down on a nearby table and running from the room in tears. This small sequence is one of the most heart-wrenching moments in the game because it captures Angela's entire character in a single scene, oscillating between reaching out for help, recoiling from it, blaming herself, and drowning in shame. Her reaction is not random. It's a trauma response. Having been conditioned by years of abuse, Angela cannot trust anyone, least of all a man. Even when she wants to let go of her pain, her body and her instincts won't allow her to. The kitchen knife Angela clutches is loaded with meaning. It is one of the most important objects in Silent Hill 2. For Angela, the knife is a lifeline. It's her last defense against a world that has hurt her repeatedly. It also represents her suicidal ideation, her constant temptation to give up and leave the fire she lives in. For James, when Angela gives him the knife, it becomes a mirror of his own guilt. Holding Angela's weapon forces him to confront his own subconscious desire for punishment and death. James is not suicidal in the same way Angela is, but he is self-destructive. He walks into Silent Hill willingly, after all. The knife is also telling because of how ordinary it is. Unlike Pyramid's head massive blade, the kitchen knife is domestic, mundane. This reflects Angela's abuse. It wasn't cinematic or grandiose. It happened in the supposed safety of her home. Silent Hill warps everyday objects into horrors. Because for Angela, even the most ordinary space was a battleground. Angela is staring into a mirror when James finds her, and mirrors in Silent Hill are never neutral. They represent self-reflection, identity, and the inability to escape oneself. For James, mirrors reoccur throughout the game, most notably the opening bathroom mirror. For Angela, the mirror represents her self-loathing and a fractured sense of identity. She sees herself not as a victim, but as damaged, broken, and guilty. This is what abuse does. It convinces the victim that they are at fault. This apartment scene sets up everything that comes later in Angela's arc. Her suicidal despair, her paranoia, her longing for death. All of it is foreshadowed here. When she hands James the knife, it's not just an item transfer, it's a symbolic gesture. She is passing her burden to him, even if he doesn't realize it yet. Angela doesn't want James's help. She doesn't want comfort, because she doesn't believe comfort is possible. This contrasts sharply with Maria, who clings to James, seeking validation and attention. Where Maria represents desire, Angela represents despair. James is caught between the two, the temptation to indulge lust and the reminder of trauma he wants to repress. This scene is where the parallels between Angela and James become clearest. Both are carrying unbearable guilt, both are self-destructive, and also both are trapped in Silent Hill, not by choice, but by the weight of their own past. But here's the crucial difference. James still clings to denial. He hasn't accepted the truth of what he did to Mary. Angela, on the other hand, knows the truth of her trauma all too well. Where James is in the fog of repression, Angela is consumed by the fire of memory. This is why their interactions are so uneasy. Angela recognizes in James the potential for cruelty, the same cruelty she endured from her father. James, meanwhile, sees in Angela the despair he is running from. They repel each other because they are too similar, and Silent Hill thrives on that reflection. Angela's appearance in the apartments is not about jump scare or plot advancement. It's about setting the tone. Silent Hill 2 isn't just about James's journey. It's about the overlapping traumas of everyone trapped in the town. Angela is the first real sign that Silent Hill doesn't belong to James alone. This scene shows us Angela's suicidal tendencies and paranoia, the symbolic weight of the knife as both her burden and James's mirror, the use of mirrors as reflections of self-loathing, the deepening parallels between Angela and James. Angela leaves James in the apartment is with the sense that she's already lost. The knife in James's pocket becomes a constant reminder of her despair, foreshadowing the tragic encounter still to come. As James descends deeper into Silent Hill, the environments grow more claustrophobic, more twisted, and more suffocating. By the time he reaches the labyrinth, the game is no longer pretending to be a small town. It has become a literal maze of James's subconscious. The walls are made of cold stone and iron, corridors fold back on themselves, and the space feels endless, like a descent into hell itself. And it's here, in this nightmare of confinement, that Angela's truth is finally revealed. When James finds her, Angela is terrified, cowering in the corner of the room. Her voice trembles as she pleads, "Please, I'll be good, I promise." This single line is devastating. It tells us everything about Angela's past without explicitly saying it. Children often say, "I'll be good," when they've been scolded or punished, but Angela isn't talking to James. She's speaking to her father, or at least to the memory of him. Silent Hill has dragged that memory into the present, and Angela reverts to the survival instinct of a child, begging, apologizing, blaming herself. This is one of the most painful insights into Angela's psychology. She has internalized the abuse so completely that even in Silent Hill, she sees herself as the guilty one. She doesn't cry out in anger at first. She pleads for forgiveness, promises obedience, and braces for punishment. Her words summon one of the most grotesque and disturbing monsters in the game, Abstract Daddy. Its design is unforgettable, a warped flesh bed frame with two humanoid shapes fused together, one figure straddling the other in a position of dominance. It groans and thrashes, its movements a disturbing mimicry of sexual violence. The symbolism is brutally clear. This monster is Angela's trauma made flesh. It is her father's abuse manifested in the only way Silent Hill knows how: exaggerated, twisted, and undeniable. The bed imagery ties it to the domestic space of her abuse, the supposed safety of a bedroom turned into a prison of fear. The Abstract Daddy attacks, but Angela is frozen in fear. She cannot fight. She cannot even move. Her voice cracks, repeating pleas and apologies, as though she is reliving the abuse all over again. It falls to James to kill the monster. Angela screams at it in rage, but she cannot land the blow herself. Silent Hill ensures that she cannot overcome this demon on her own. The game forces James into the role of executioner. This dynamic is crucial. Angela wants to fight back, but the trauma has left her so powerless. Even when the monster dies, it does not free her. Truth remains, this nightmare is not something she can simply slay. After the battle, Angela collapses emotionally. She talks again about looking for a mother, still clinging to the hope that her mother might comfort her, might tell her the words she has longed to hear. It wasn't your fault. But we know from Angela's earlier dialogue that her mother blamed her for the abuse. Angela's not really searching for a mother. She is searching for the idea of a mother who doesn't exist, comforting presence who would validate her pain. Silent Hill, of course, will never give her that. Her search is tragic, not because she cannot find her mother in the town, but because her mother could never have given her what she needed in the first place. The Abstract Daddy fight isn't just Angela's story, it also deepens her connection to James. Angela blames herself for her father's abuse, just as James subconsciously blames Mary for her illness. Both are trapped in a distorted cycle of guilt. Angela is powerless against her trauma, just as James is powerless against his subconscious executioner, Pyramid Head. Both face monsters born from their darkest truths, and both rely on violence as the only way to silence them. Angela and James are mirrors of each other, two people broken in different ways, yet united by guilt and suffering. Angela is the victim of violence, James is the perpetrator of it. Together they show the dual nature of Silent Hill's punishment. It consumes both the abuser and the abused. Angela's plea, "Please, I'll be good, I promise," is one of the most heartbreaking lines in all of Silent Hill 2. It shatters any illusion that her suffering was metaphorical or symbolic. It was real. It was lived. Silent Hill only drags it into the open for us to see. The Abstract Daddy fight forces the player to confront Angela's trauma in the rawest way possible. It's not subtle. It's not hidden behind metaphor. It's a monster that embodies sexual abuse, and the game makes you kill it while Angela screams. But the aftermath reminds us that violence cannot erase trauma. Angela is still trapped. She is still searching for a comfort she will never receive, and Silent Hill will continue to burn around her, no matter how many monsters fall. After the labyrinth, Angela's appearance in Silent Hill 2 grow fewer, but when she does return, the game delivers her most unforgettable and devastating moment. In one of the final encounters, James finds Angela on a burning staircase. The environment is engulfed in flames, and Angela walks upward into the flames as though it were the most natural thing in the world. This scene is not only Angela's ending, it is Silent Hill itself laid bare. Angela looks at James with desperate eyes and asks,
"Will you love me? Care for me? Heal all my pain?"
It's a heartbreaking question. Angela doesn't really expect James to say yes. What she wants is what she has always wanted. Someone to validate her, to comfort her, to tell her she isn't to blame. In this moment, she offers James a chance to be that person, the one who finally gives her the compassion her mother never did. But James doesn't answer. His silence is damning. It shows that he either cannot or will not take on that role. Maybe he is too consumed by his own guilt. Maybe Silent Hill itself prevents him from offering comfort. Either way, Angela immediately understands. She cuts him off with a bitter finality.
That's what I thought. James. Give me back the knife.
This exchange encapsulates Angela's despair. Even when she reaches out, she is abandoned. Even when she dares to hope for kindness, she is denied. Angela then asks James for her knife back. This is the same knife she left with him in the apartments, the knife that symbolized her suicidal impulses and her burden of despair. James refused to give it back. This refusal carries two layers of meaning. On the surface, James is trying to protect Angela. Giving her the knife would be enabling her self-destruction. By withholding it, he thinks he's keeping her safe. But at a deeper level, Angela calls him out. She bitterly remarks,
Give me back the knife.
No, I won't.
Saving it for yourself. Have it your way. It doesn't change anything.
This line hits hard. It implies that James is no different from her, that he too contemplates using the knife, that his guilt has pushed him towards self-destruction as well. In refusing to give it back, he isn't protecting her. He is projecting his own despair onto it. Angela sees through him immediately. This is a brutal moment of recognition. Angela identifies James not as a survivor, but as a fellow lost soul. She doesn't see him as stronger or more capable of surviving Silent Hill. She sees him as someone just as broken as she is. After this exchange, Angela turns toward the flames. When James sees the flames, his reaction is confusion. He asks Angela, "It's hot as hell in here." Angela responds with one of the most iconic lines in the game.
It's hot as in here.
You see it too? For me, it's always like this.
This is the essence of Angela's existence. For her, the fire is not new. It has always burned. Silent Hill has simply externalized what she already lives with every day. The fire of trauma, guilt, and despair that consumes her from the inside. Where James only now begins to see the flames, Angela has walked in them her entire life. To her, Silent Hill is not a transformation of reality. It's an honest reflection of what her world has always been. The final dialogue deepens the tragedy of Angela's arc in several ways. The plea for love. Angela wants to be loved, cared for, and healed, but her plea is met with silence. This shows us that her greatest longing will remain unfulfilled. James's inability to answer reflects his own paralysis. He is too consumed by guilt to comfort someone else, too lost in his own nightmare to offer compassion. His silence is a mirror of Angela's mother's neglect. Both abandon her in the moment she needs them most. By asking for her knife back, Angela tests James one last time. His refusal and her bitter retort reveal that she sees James as no survivor. He is as broken as she is, clinging to despair just as tightly. Angela's climb into the flames represents her final surrender to her Silent Hill. The knife is no longer necessary. Her fate is already sealed. Angela's final scene isn't just her ending. It's the ultimate statement of Silent Hill's cruelty. She wanted love, compassion, and validation. She wanted someone to tell her it wasn't her fault. But she never receives it. Not from her mother, not from James, not from Silent Hill. Instead, she walks alone into the fire, resigned to the eternal suffering she has always known. And James, forced to watch, sees not just her torment, but his own reflected back at him. Her words, her bitterness, her fire, all of it is a mirror of his guilt. Silent Hill has shown him what happens when despair consumes you completely. Angela's staircase scene is unforgettable because it is uncompromising. There is no redemption, no relief, no comfort, only flames. Fire carries many symbolic meanings in literature and mythology: purification, destruction, passion, hell. For Angela, fire means only one thing: suffering. It represents the abuse she endured, the constant pain of her father's violence, her mother's rejection, and the scars left of her psyche. It represents the shame and guilt she carries, the belief that she is bad and deserves to be burned. And it represents her resignation to a life and death defined by trauma. The staircase itself is symbolic too. The staircase usually represents ascension, progress, or movement towards something greater, but Angela's staircase ascends only into fire. There's no escape, no higher purpose. For Angela, the only path forward is deeper into the flames. During the stair scene, Angela mistakes James for her mother. This confusion is more than just disorientation. It is symbolic for Angela's desperate longing for comfort. Her mother was the one person who could have saved her, who could have validated her, who could have told her the abuse wasn't her fault. But instead, her mother turned away, blaming her. The moment that James could have been the voice she needed, he could have told her what she longed to hear. But James doesn't, and perhaps cannot. He is too consumed by his own guilt to comfort hers, and so Angela remains trapped in her despair, climbing her fiery staircase alone. One of the most significant aspects of this scene is that James finally sees Angela's fire. Early in the game, he could not perceive it, just as he could not perceive the full truth of his own guilt. But by this point in the story, James has begun to accept what he did to Mary. His denial is cracking. Because Silent Hill is a mirror, James's growing self-awareness allows him to perceive Angela's torment more fully. He can now see the fire she has always seen. This moment is not just about Angela, it's about James. Finally able to recognize the suffering of another, Silent Hill teaches him empathy through horror. Angela's decision to walk into the flames is not framed as dramatic or sudden. It feels inevitable. She does not scream, does not struggle. She simply accepts it. This is who she is now, who she has always been in Silent Hill, someone destined to burn. Her final words to James echo in resignation. You see it too? For me, it's always like this. There's no hope left, no redemption. Angela's Silent Hill will never change. The fire is permanent. Her death is not shown explicitly, but the implication is clear. Angela walks into the flames and does not come back. Angela's staircase scene is one of the most powerful in gaming history because it forces us to face the cruelty of Silent Hill. James may find redemption depending on the ending. Angela never does. James killed Mary, but can still seek forgiveness. Angela was a victim, but still suffers as if she were guilty. Silent Hill does not distinguish between sinner and victim. It punishes guilt wherever it finds it, whether it deserved or not. This scene also crystallizes Angela's role as James's mirror. Her fire is her guilt, visualized differently. She walks into hers accepting it. James still has to decide whether to drown in his own. Angela's story ends not with peace, but with fire. And that's what makes it unforgettable. Silent Hill offers no easy catharsis. It doesn't heal wounds, it exposes them, amplifies them, and leaves its victims burning. Angela's story is one of the most tragic arcs in Silent Hill 2. Unlike James, her fate is never in question. She is not on a journey of denial to acceptance. She is not wrestling with a single guilty act. She is someone who has lived her entire life inside Silent Hill's fire, long before the town pulled her into its fog. Her tragedy is layered, but 3 truths define her. One of the first truths is Angela seeking validation. Throughout the game, Angela searches for her mother, not because she literally expects to find her in Silent Hill, but because she yearns for the one thing she never received: validation. She needed someone to tell her it wasn't her fault, that she was not bad, that she didn't deserve her father's abuse, but her mother betrayed her, blamed her, and deepened her shame. Angela's hunt for a mother in Silent Hill is a desperate hope for comfort that can never come. And when she mistakes James for a mother, we see just how deeply she needs to hear those words from someone, anyone. James could have been that voice. He could have told her she wasn't to blame, but he doesn't. whether out of self-absorption or because Silent Hill won't allow it. James withholds the validation Angela so desperately craves. Another truth I want to talk about is Angela as James's victim. Angela is not just a side character, she is James's shadow. Where he projected lust, Angela was objectified. When he projected frustration, Angela was neglected. Where he killed Mary, Angela killed her father. In a chilling way, Angela is the victim of the kind of man James became. His resentment towards Mary, his suppressed desires, his subconscious violence, all of that is mirrored in Angela's trauma. This is what happens when those desires are inflicted to someone innocent. Angela is James's guilt externalized, not because he hurt her directly, but because her suffering embodies everything he wishes to bury about himself. Angela's final scene, ascending the burning staircase, is the ultimate revelation of Silent Hill's cruelty. For her, it has always been fire, always suffering, always despair. The fact that James can finally see it too is telling. Only after confronting his own sins is he able to recognize the full horror of Angela's reality. Silent Hill doesn't just reflect guilt back at you. It forces you to see the suffering of others once you accept your own. Unlike James, Angela has no path forward. James can still choose. He can accept punishment, seek redemption, or drown in denial depending on the ending. Angela has no choice. The fire will consume her because in her mind, it always has. Angela's journey reminds us of Silent Hill's true nature. The town is not about fairness. It does not separate sinner from victim. It reflects guilt, no matter how misplaced, and it consumes those who carry it. For James, guilt is punishment for what he did. For Angela, guilt is punishment for what was done to her. The fact that both are treated the same is what makes Silent Hill so horrifying. It is not a moral judge, it is a mirror, and mirrors are merciless. Angela's final words echo after she disappears into the flames.
You see it too? For me, it's always like this.
That line encapsulates not just her story, but the essence of Silent Hill itself. For some, the nightmare begins when they enter the town. For others, like Angela, the nightmare has always been going on their entire lives. Silent Hill doesn't create the fire, it only makes it visible. Angela needed one thing, someone to tell her it wasn't her fault. Instead, she was abandoned by her mother, victimized by her father, and ultimately left to burn in her own despair. In her story, there's no happy ending, no closure, only tragedy. And that is what makes her story unforgettable. Angela is not a character who is saved. She is a character who shows us the cost of silence, the cruelty of blame, and the inescapable weight of guilt. Her fire still burns. Hey guys, thanks again for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. Silent Hill was an amazing game. I really loved it. After playing this remake, I really do want to play the original. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the next video.